Minority Retort with Jason Lamb.
All right, it's Friday morning on XRAY in the morning. That means it's time for Minority Retort. My name is Jason Lamb. I'm the co-host and co-producer of Minority Retort, the comedy show, which you can see at the Siren Theater. It's an all-people of color comedy show. It's hosted by myself, Julian Ramos, and a now rotating cast of POC comedic characters. And in fact, you can see it tomorrow night at the Siren Theater. For more information, check out sirentheater.com for ticket info and all of the good stuff you can find out about the show tomorrow. But here on this show, we don't just talk to comedians and talk about comedy. We also talk about other big things that are going on in the community and done by big players in the community who are POC. And today, I'm so pleased to be joined by my guest, who is an actor currently starring in the Portland Center Stage production of Crossing Minnesota. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show, Robert I. Mesa. Robert, how are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Good, thanks. Sorry to be talking to you so early this morning, especially after you had a performance last night.
Oh, no, I had two performances yesterday. We had a matinee for the kids, and then I did a workshop. I've been doing workshops for the past 2 weeks, acting workshops with local kids from the high schools and theater groups and everything like that. So, yeah, no, I'd be happy to take your call.
Fantastic. Well, listen, for folks that haven't seen the show Crossing Minnesota, and in fact it closes this weekend, so we want to make sure people come out and see it.
Of course.
But for folks who haven't seen it yet, can you tell them what it's all about?
So the play's a lot to take in. It's broken up in two acts. It's a 2-hour and then like 15-minute play. So the first act deals with how Sacagawea met Lewis and Clark. That's what we refer to her as, and telling the true story of her origins, which is really interesting. And the playwright Mary Catherine Nagel is just, I call her Wonder Woman. She's brilliantly crafted the story to so where Sacagawea and Lewis and Clark meet on the river. It's called Minnesota, and it ties back into the Dakota Access Pipeline. I don't know if you heard about that. It happened in 2016, where the Army Corps of Engineers tried to put a pipeline on the reserve there. Did you hear about that?
I have heard about that. In fact, we've had a few guests on the show that have been there. I know you yourself have attended that the protests that were happening there in 2016. And whom do you play in Crossing Minnesota?
Yeah, so in the first character I play is Coyote, and I play Sacagawea's love interest. And then we are all reincarnated. There's a cast of 6, and we are all reincarnated as new characters, and bringing it to present time in 2016 during the pipeline. And then my second character that I play a character named Travis, and he is one of the leaders of the protests. And then Sacagawea is reincarnated as another character as my love interest now. So, and it tells a story about what actually happened there at the camps and everything. And it's a pretty accurate depiction of everything. And it's a really it's pretty interesting for people who have no clue that it happened. A lot of people, the only thing they know about it is just from what they saw probably on CNN that did a special for 10 minutes in between the weather and sports, and people just brushed it off their shoulders. And for them to actually see it, really shown in front of them, it's pretty jarring for people. Some people are on board with it and very supportive, and some people were actually there at the camps, and some people, remember seeing it on certain broadcasts, and some people are just kind of in awe of it that it happened, and some people still don't really want to admit that it's happening. And it's interesting with the first act of the play, the writer, she accurately depicts what Lewis and Clark actually did, and how Sacagawea knew Charbonneau, and that are pretty much debunking what we are taught in history. And it's interesting seeing younger kids, especially Native kids, because I was taught that Lewis and Clark and Charbonneau were these heroes, but she shows them for who they really were, and that's not who they really were. Sacagawea was the ultimate Wonder Woman back then, And once again, a lot of people don't really want to hear the truth, and it's pretty fascinating, because as an actor, for doing a theater piece, or for doing comedy, or even musicians or whatever, if somebody leaves halfway during a show, you're kind of like, oh man, I bombed that. But no, it's the opposite for us, because we're doing our job. We're servicing a story that's extremely important, and it's more accurate than what we've been taught, and people don't really want to come to terms with that. So, and it's written by an actual Native American, so that's a bit jarring for people, because
So I've had the pleasure of having Mary Catherine Nagle on the show last year, and one of the things you referred to her as Wonder Woman, and I second that. One of the things she does very well is drawing the connection between the past and the present, and it's something that is so easy to get lost in the modern era, and we all have different lives to lead, and we're all trying to push forward and live in the present moment, but push forward to the future. We don't really think about the connection to the past. And why is this story, do you think, important to tell now?
What's that?
Why do you think the story is important to tell now?
Oh God, it's how much time do you have on that? It's extremely important, because it's like for example, for the longest time, we celebrated Christopher Columbus, and now people are really actually finally figuring out that what he actually did, and all the horrible things and everything like that. And a lot of states now do First Peoples Day, instead, or National Indigenous Peoples Day. But it's the same thing with this, and it's great for kids to see it, and it's great for even adults to see it, or older natives, or older anybody in general, because it shows people what we should have been taught in history books, and it gives everybody another, a whole different thought process with everything that they've been taught. Because I was always taught that, and during Thanksgiving we made headdresses in class, and I always was really confused, like, why are we doing this? And later on, it's just kind of being brainwashed in a sense, and being taught all the wrong things in schools. And that happens with a lot of cultures. So after a lot of people seeing this play of different races, or hopefully it inspires them to go off and tell their own stories of how everything actually did happen, instead of it being so-called whitewashed. And for the second act of the play, again, it's extremely important, because it's a thing that people want to brush under the rug. It's like when people say climate change isn't a real thing, and it's and it also, I think it's extremely important how all of our Native brothers and sisters just stood in solidarity with each other at that camp, and what everybody did, how much they sacrificed, kids, elders, everyone, and it's it's extremely powerful. And another thing that's really important about the second act is that what I will tip my hat off to Portland Center Stages for, it's very accurate. Like, the characters, we look how we look now. It's not, we don't look like Lord of the Ring elves up there with long, beautiful hair running around carrying protest signs. No, we look how we look today, and it's I find great joy in that. And the second part, I have a different accent that I put on, but it's actually how people sounded there, how the kids sounded, the ones that ran a petition to Obama back in 2016. That's it's very real. It's very real, and I really appreciate that. So it's a lot to do for a show, but it's worth it. So
So I'd like to just dig into a little bit more about what your own personal experience was like being there at Standing Rock. Go ahead.
I was there right when it started, because when I went there, it was when everybody was putting their own nation's flags on the fence, and later on those flags were taken down and that fence was broken, and a lot of things happened on the ride. I went there very, very early on, and then my brother and the folks went up there midway through the protests and helped out at the camp. And then I remember going through different protests, like in Santa Fe, New Mexico, or in LA, and just everybody, just in different places. But I remember getting supplies and sending it over there. But But I was there when it was just when people were speaking up about it, and I remember they probably had like just a couple of like police officers there guarding certain places, but that was pretty much it. And then it slowly escalated more and more, and it got to the point where they sick dogs on protesters. Water protectors, I should say. I take back protesters. Where they sick dogs on people, and then later on it led to rubber bullets. It led to people getting shot by water cannons at like 2 a.m. while it's freezing temperatures, and they're shooting kids and elders with water cannons. And I'm pretty sure that was only like a tiny segment on whatever network, and people tend to just tune that stuff out, and it's horrifying. But yeah, there's so many stories that happen there. There's so many people that have, different takes on it and what days they were there. And there's one, I won't give it away, so you have to go watch the play to find out. But there's an incident that happens in the play when we're in the future, and people, it's really hard to reenact that, because all of us, like, there's a cast of 6, and the 3 of us were native and all from different parts of the country. And once we read that in the script, like, everybody knows where they're at when that happened. Everybody has a loved one that was there, or a friend that was there, or waking up to a feed like they're shooting people with water cannons, or they're shooting people with rubber bullets, and using tear gas. And yeah, it's just, they're putting people in cages now for it's horrifying. Yeah, but it's yeah. But I was only there like right at the beginning before it escalated to really what it was. So yeah.
And the tagline for the show, Crossing Mininoshi, is protect the water, remember the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And just from the way you're describing what happened at Standing Rock, and obviously what Native and Indigenous people have had to go through the history of this country, I mean, that tagline really crosses the bridge between eras, or is really the through line, I guess you could almost say through history. But you mentioned that maybe not a lot of people were aware of what happened at Standing Rock, or maybe if they were, they passed by it between weather and sports on the news, and just the nature of things, and how the media is. We move on to the next thing pretty quickly. But I wonder if you can tell us what is the current status of what is going on with at Standing Rock and No Dapple and the pipeline.
Well, I'm not the official speaker of that, but I do know that there was a big leak that happened with whatever went in there. Yeah, there was a huge leak, and yeah, and so far I haven't really heard a whole lot about it. But yeah, I just know that it's just heartbreaking, and there was a leak that happened, but I'm not too sure what else is happening there right now at the moment. I'm not too sure if things settled down, but what I do know is that this is turned into, because it was stopped while Obama was still in office, and then once Trump was elected, like within like the first week, he re-signed it back on for it to go through. That was, and because it was, I don't know, it's horrible. Everybody, I remember seeing videos of people celebrating there, and then just a few, like, not even a week later, it was like, all right, it's back on again. So, yeah, I do know that there was a leak there that happened that was pretty bad. And the other thing that's really bad is that this is just kind of led to a ripple effect of other sacred sites being, trying to be overrun. Now there's parks in New Mexico and reservations I'm from, because I'm half Navajo, from the Navajo Nation, and there's parks there that are being invaded as well, that are wanting to be taken over, and treaty rights are being broken, and it's a bit of a mess for everyone. Everyone's, slowly, we don't have that much land anymore at all, and whatever do have, it's just being, it's slowly being taken more and more. And the thing about it is, like, there's a lot of sacred sites that were disturbed there at Standing Rock, and it's just, more sacred sites for other tribes are going to slowly be disturbed as well. So it's just,
heartbreaking is a great way to describe that, unfortunately. Well, with our time left today, and again, our guest is Robert I. Mesa, actor who's currently starring in the Portland Center Stage production of Crossing Minnesota. I want to let our listeners know a little bit more about you. In addition to being an actor, you're also a writer and accomplished photographer and artist. You, a while back, and I'm not certain of the year, but you did do an artist in residency for your photography in China. And I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us about that experience.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was actually I was living in China for about 5-6 months. But pretty much what that was for was I did a tour from Shanghai to Hong Kong, and just did a tour of doing photography and teaching my style of photography, because pretty much what I started out back then was black and white images, and I color over them by hand. But I started off shooting fancy dancers, and what the fancy dancers are. It's one of the traditional dances that we do during powwows, and then because it's broken up to different groups: fancy shawl dancers, jingle dress dancers, traditional dancers, and whatever tribe you're with, you have your own traditional dance. And I just started photographing that, and showing that to the public, and it was noticed. And at art show I did in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and that's how I went to China. But what was really fascinating about that is that, as more and more as I traveled the world doing work for acting and photography, a lot of people think Native Americans are dead in some countries. They think that we look a certain way, and the people in China, their only reference to us of what we look like is from cowboys and Indian movies,
right.
Riding around on horses. We live in teepees, and then when they find out you're Native American, they're like, oh wow, that's they have so many questions. And then when I would show them my photography or a video I've taken, it's just like they really, really appreciate it. And one thing I did with a lot of my talks, I was reintroducing them to Native Americans as we are. Just kind of breaking up tribes. And I remember I had like a little map of the U.S. of what tribes are left. And it's a pretty disturbing map of how much Native Americans were in this country originally, and how it just rippled down to just a tiny little pieces of what we call America now.
Yeah.
I would show that to them, and they would just be kind of left in tears, because they don't really know. They also are giving false history of us. So it's just did the shows there. It was very rewarding. Met a lot of wonderful people, and one thing that was pretty interesting is that our culture and their culture have a lot of things in common, and it was kind of mind blowing, because the way we pray, the way we have respect for each other, it's pretty interesting. And one thing was also
Robert, I'm so sorry we were out of time, but I thank you so much for sharing that today, and I really apologize we ran out of time. I appreciate you coming on the show, and people should come and check you out this weekend in Crossing Minnesota at Portland Center Stage, and check out your website, robertimesa.com. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you.